Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Anne and today I'm giving you my first wrap-up of the year. As I've explained in previous videos, mostly at the end of last year I think, I haven't been buying a lot of books, although that's probably all relative and subjective, but for me, I haven't been buying a lot of books because I've kind of changed my way of buying books. I decided I wanted to be a bit more mindful and a bit more aware of the books that I'm buying, so only buying books that I know I really want to read soon, or books by favorite authors or things like that. And that is not to say that any other approach to book buying is wrong. Absolutely not. This is just how I decided I want to approach my book buying behavior. So now we're approaching the end of April and I'm giving you my first book haul because I have acquired 10 books over the past 3.5 months. The last 4 of those were acquired during a trip to the bookstore almost 2 weeks ago, which was my very first trip to the bookstore this year and in months, I think, and it was really nice to be around so many books again, so many books I haven't read yet, so many books I want, which was a bit dangerous. I wasn't planning on going home with 4 books, but that just goes to show that I can be very proud of myself for buying very few books, but it's also probably just because I haven't been exposed to that many books in physical form for a long time. Anyway, enough rambling, let's get into the books. The first book I bought was Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I have already read this book, so if you want to know my review, you can watch my March wrap-up, which I posted last week, a week and a half ago. I'll leave a link up above. This is of course a very famous book. It's a classic within gay literature. It was written in, I think, in the 50s. Yes, it was published in 1956. And it was quite a revolutionary work and I heard a lot of people speak very highly of this book, so I've always wanted to give it a go, at least for a very long time. And then Connor read it last year and absolutely loved it, so I decided to give it some priority this year, so this was the first book I bought. It's about an American man who spends some time in Paris. He gets engaged there to a woman, but then when that woman leaves for a few weeks or a few months, he kind of starts an affair with a man who is called Giovanni, hence the title, and it's all about him and his sexuality and his identity and his struggles. Quick spoiler for my review, I didn't like it very much, which I was very disappointed by, but if you want to know more about why I didn't like it very much, I recommend watching that video. The second book I bought was The Lathe of Heaven by Ursula K. Le Guin. I've never read anything by Ursula K. Le Guin before, but I really want to, and I really like sci-fi, so I decided to give one of her sci-fi books a go. I say that as if I've already read it, but I haven't yet. This is quite a short book I think, but for some reason it's also kind of intimidating, but I really do want to read it this year. That was one of my goals. It's about a man who can alter reality through his dreams, which is always something I'm very interested in, anything like that. So I'm really excited to read it, I just have to find the right time. The next book I bought was a new release by one of my favorite authors, and that was Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. This was, along with another book in this video, one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and I absolutely loved it. I think I gave it 5 stars. I must have given it 5 stars. So yes, I've also already read it. This is a prequel novel to The Hate U Give, which was Angie Thomas's debut novel and also her most popular novel, I think. And it follows Maverick Carter, who is the father of the main character in The Hate U Give. But we follow him as he is 17 years old and struggling with earning enough money and suddenly taking care of his newborn son. It also delves into how black men are expected to not show any emotion, how they are kind of dehumanized in that sense. It goes into a lot of issues like that. There are gang related issues in here as well, and it's just very beautifully written. It's a beautiful book. Very sad, but also very beautiful, and I loved it. Then the next one was When the Moon Was Ours by Anna Marie McLemore. I made a video, I think at the start of the year, in which I talked about a few authors that are new to me that I really want to try out in 2021. James Baldwin was one of them, Ursula K. Le Guin is another, and Anna Marie McLemore was yet another, and I haven't read this yet, but I decided to pick this up because I've seen Anna Marie McLemore's books around a lot. They write, I think, magical realism type books, and I'm always very interested in that. And this one is the one that spoke most to me. I really don't know that much about what this is about. I haven't read it yet, but I'm very excited to. And again, I'm waiting for the right moment. Next up is the other most anticipated release of the year, and that was The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers. This is actually the most recent book I finished. I gave it 5 stars. This is the last book in the Wayfarers series, and the Wayfarers series has become my all-time favorite series over the last year, and this book was a great ending to that, I think. I did enjoy it a little bit less than the other 3 books, I think, but it was still really good. It was heartwarming, it was beautiful, and I loved it. For those of you who don't know what this series is about, it is a sci-fi series of 4 companion novels that can be read separately from one another or out of chronological order, but I would recommend reading them in order. The first book is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which is also the most famous one, I think. And all of these books follow different sets of characters. It's not really plot driven, it's more character based, and it's all about different cultures, how different species interact with one another, how you can learn from one another, and it's just really beautiful. And by the time this goes up, I've probably also published my blog post on these books and why this is a great time to read them. So I will leave a link to that down below. Next up, there's The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This was a gift from my parents-in-law, who gave this to me as a belated Christmas present because we didn't really celebrate Christmas with presents in December because of Corona. So during Easter we received a few presents and this was one of them. I'm really glad I received this because I've heard so many great things about this over the past couple of months. This is also the pick for the Brews in Reviews book club for May and June, so I think I'm going to read it then and join with their book club. It is hosted by Jazz from Travels in Fiction and her partner in the Brews and Reviews podcast. I think she's called Sharn, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm sorry. But this book is about Nora, who I think she dies and then on her last day on Earth, she finds herself transported to a library. There she is given the chance to undo her regrets and try out each of the other lives she might have lived. And that sounds really wonderful. It sounds like a great story, also like a story that could have a lot of heartbreaking moments, but I'm ready for that. I have never read anything by Matt Haig, but I've wanted to for a long time. And I think I've only heard good things about this book and a lot of people seem to love it. So I'm hoping to get to it next month. And now we're down to the last 4 books I bought, which are the 4 books I bought in the bookstore 2 weeks ago. And these books, I have to say, were a bit less mindful. I didn't really go into the bookstore with a plan. I just decided to see what they had, see what I liked, and then buy maybe 2 books. I ended up buying 4. I think only one of them was really on my to buy list. So the other 3 were a bit more out of the blue. But I'm still glad I bought them and I'm excited to read them. So let's get into them. The first one I picked up was The Near Witch by V.E. Schwab. V.E. Schwab is one of my favorite writers and I think this was her first book. It's a middle grade novel and I think it was republished a few years ago after she got very popular. I don't really know that much of what it's about. I just know that last month I read one of V.E. Schwab's other middle grade books, City of Ghosts, and I gave that one 5 stars and I really enjoyed it. I wasn't really sure what to expect from a middle grade novel from V.E. Schwab, but it was so good and that made me want to pick up this one as well when I came across it in the bookstore. It says something here about children disappearing from their beds and about the main character Lexi thinking that the witch that she knows as a bedtime story might actually exist. Sounds good, sounds exciting. I'm really excited to read this because I love V.E. Schwab. I don't think I've read a single book by hers that I haven't liked, so I'm sure this one will be another hit. Then I picked up Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, which was in the sale section with 50% off. I think I wouldn't have bought it if it hadn't been 50% off, because even though this is a very popular book and I do really enjoy Leigh Bardugo's writing, I really enjoyed Six of Crows and I also enjoyed Shadow and Bone, but a bit less than Six of Crows. But despite that, I wasn't really that interested in picking this up because I've seen some really great reviews, I've seen some reviews that were a bit less enthusiastic, and all in all I figured maybe I'll pick this up at some point, but I'm not that amped to read it. But the sale tempted me and now I'm probably going to read it next month for the Buzzword Readathon, because next month I'll have to read a book with the word home or house in it. And this is now the only book that I own with the word home or house in it. So maybe it was destiny. I hope I'll enjoy it. As for what it's about, I think it's kind of a dark academia book about a girl who goes to Yale and there she dives into the world of Yale's secret societies. I think it's kind of a really dark story from what I've heard from other people, and there's also maybe some magic or supernatural elements, I'm not sure. I'm gonna find out. Next, I picked up the only book that was actually on my to-buy list, and that's Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And this is the sequel to Before the Coffee Gets Cold, and I really enjoyed that one. I read it last year. It was really good. It's about a Japanese cafe that allows you to travel back in time, but you have to return before the coffee that you are served gets cold. And this is a sequel. I have to say, I don't really know what this one is going to be about and how it's going to add more to the story, because the first book was kind of a rounded story. It was really good on its own. I don't think it really needed a sequel, but nevertheless I'm excited to see what the author does in this book, because I did really like the writing, I like the story. I think there might be more possibilities, but I'm also a bit scared that it will be a bit of a letdown. But I'm going in with an open mind, so I'll find out, I guess. And then the last book I'm going to talk about, and the last book I picked up during that trip, was Toffee by Sarah Crossan. This is a book that I've seen around my local bookstore a lot. I think they almost always have a copy of it. I always pick it up, look at it, read the back, think maybe I should buy this, and then end up not buying it. I think that has happened about 5 or 6 times now. And then I go back home and I'm almost a bit sad that I didn't buy it. Or there comes this moment when I've just finished a big book and I think this would be a great time to pick up that one book that I keep almost buying but then don't buy. So, long story short, this time I figured it's here again, I'm here now, I've got some book vouchers, I'm gonna buy it. And I'm gonna read it, and I hope I'm going to love it, otherwise all that build-up would have been for nothing. But this is a book about Alison, who has run away from home, and with nowhere to live she hides in the shed of what she thinks is an abandoned house. But then she finds out that the house isn't empty because an elderly woman called Marla lives there. She is lonely and often confused. She mistakes Alison for a friend from her past called Toffee and invites her in. And that's basically what the book is about. I think it's about their relationship. And it says here, Toffee is who Alison becomes. But as she realizes how much Marla needs a real friend, she begins to ask, where is home? What does family mean? And who am I really? That all sounds really cool, really interesting. And it's also written, I think it's all written in verse. So it's also kind of a quick read, which is why I kept thinking this would be a great time to pick this up. But over the past year or two I've read quite a few novels in verse, but I've always read them as audiobooks. So this will be the first novel in verse that I'll actually read with my eyes. So I'm interested to see how I will experience that, if I'm going to love that. I'm excited to now finally own this book after all those years. Also, I really love this cover. It's what kept drawing me to this book in the bookstore. So there you have it. Those are all the 10 books that I bought over the first couple of months of 2021. I'm really excited about my haul. I think I'm going to really enjoy all these books, at least I hope so. I'm also glad that I've already read a couple of them and I hope to read most of them during this year. Please in a comment down below let me know if you've read any of these books and whether you like them. I'd love to hear about it. Please like this video if you liked it and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of me, and have a wonderful day. Bye!